Yo, it's your homeboy Kiiro in the building. Welcome to episode 118 of One Piece Gist. In this episode, I'll be reviewing One Piece chapter 776, 777, and 778. Usually, I have a brief chapter review first. Afterwards, I have a more in depth discussion of the chapter. And in this episode, we'll be doing the same thing. So let's start. Chapter 776. This was a decent chapter. It was a fight chapter. There was a fight in this chapter, and therefore there was some action. And overall, it was a decent chapter. It wasn't a bad chapter, and saying it's a good chapter is a bit of a stretch, and I'll explain why in my discussion section. So that's about it. It's a decent chapter, and yeah, that's it. So let's start the discussion of this chapter. The reason why I didn't really rate this chapter very highly is because the fight was somewhat one-sided. In my opinion, Diamante brought everything to the fight. He brought, the feats, the devil fruit, and Kairos didn't really follow up the way I expected him to. So overall, the fight was underwhelming, particularly from Kairos' side. And, let's look at Kairos' feats. He deflected the rain. Oh, you mean like Zoro did against Kaku in Eni's lobby? He sliced through steel. You mean like Zoro did in Alabasta? He took a shit ton of damage. You mean like Zoro has done pretty much the entire series? We could go as far back as the Barate arc, if you really want to go there. So he's basically just the pre-time skip Zoro, except arguably even worse. So just very underwhelming. And in the pre-time skip, this would have been a good fight, especially early on. But post time skip, you really need to bring a bit more to the table to make a fight entertaining. So I think the main problem, right? His feats were good. They were good. They're just cliche. We've seen this shit already. You know what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily destructive. It's not necessarily about topping what Zoro has done before, but more about just bringing something new to the table. So he could have, an inferior feat to Zoro. He could have a superior feat to Zoro, but as long as it's something original. For example, we can consider the Gladius fight. Bartolomeo with the Gomu Gomu, no, the Barry Barry pistol. That was new. We've never seen something like that before, and that was hype. He wasn't just copying and pasting a feat that we've seen before, and this is pretty much what happened in this fight. Kairos just copy and pasted Zoro's feats, and that was nothing new. I was expecting a lot more creativity. I was expecting to see a lot more new stuff, especially from the man, the myth, the legend, Kairos. Unfortunately, none of this came to be, and it's just a very cliche fight from Kairos' part. Now, I've spoken a lot about Kairos, so let's talk about Diamante for a minute. Diamante has gotten a lot of hate, and I think people really downplay him. Sure, he doesn't have durability, right? But that's not a big deal. At the end of the day, he's still a decent character. People have to understand that if Diamante didn't get one shot, Kairos would have lost the fight. It is that simple. He was dodging Kairos' attacks, perfectly at the beginning of the fight before Kairos sustained any damage whatsoever, and he just got overconfident and paid the price for it. That's pretty much how the fight went. It's very similar to Zoro versus Mr. One in Alabasta, but this is actually better than the fight against Mr. One, in my opinion, because we know for a fact, that the next hit from Diamante would have killed Kairos. In Mr. One's case, the same thing would have happened, but I just feel this was a lot more justified in terms of a character getting one shot. But yeah, in overall, it's just to serve a purpose. He got one shot because that is the only way Kairos is going to win the fight. If he didn't get one shot, Kairos would have died. Robin would have been exhausted, because she used her fruit the whole time to protect Rebecca. Robin would have gone waxed. Rebecca, let's not even talk about what would have happened to her. So Diamante, he had a good showing overall. He just got overconfident, and he paid the price for it, and Oda took him out in an intelligent way. What really got me concerning this fight was basically Kairos' feats. Kairos really didn't bring anything new to the table. I think if he brought some new stuff to the table, some creative stuff, this would have been a very, very nice fight. But it wasn't. It was just a decent fight. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Moving forward, chapter 777 review. We'll start with the chapter review. Afterwards, I have a more in-depth discussion of the chapter. Chapter review, shit chapter. Discussion. This is pretty much a transition chapter, pretty much setting up the events that happened in 778. And Oda did it terribly. It's basically a wasted chapter. We get such little information. We get, pretty much only one page, 1 or 2 pages out of the entire 20-ish pages are worth something. The rest is just rubbish. So a wasted chapter, a very terrible chapter, one of the worst chapters of the year. Moving forward, chapter 778. We finally get this we finally get another fight, which was sort of implied and set up in chapter 777, and it's a fight chapter with a pretty impressive feat, and again a decent chapter, and I'll explain why in my discussion section why I didn't read this chapter any higher. And that's pretty much my review of 778, a decent chapter. Let's start the discussion. So first off, I want to talk about the cover story. We got Jinbei with the pornoglyph, which is really interesting for 2 or 3 reasons. And what is interesting is where Oda can take the cover story from here. This is good enough to end the cover story, but hopefully Oda doesn't end it just on this note, and he gives us a little bit extra. So let's assume this isn't the last page of the Jinbei cover story. Then we can get maybe 1 or 2 more pages for the cover story, in which case it will show us where Jinbei goes from there. And a few possibilities is someone who was actually looking for the poneglyph bumps into Jinbei, so maybe the world government or whatever. Second possibility is, I guess, Jinbei somehow knows someone who knows something about poneglyph. Third is maybe he actually carries the poneglyph with him, because Jinbei is a pretty strong character and he just takes it to Fishman Island or some shit. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure what's gonna happen, but I am curious to see what's gonna happen. And by the looks of things, I do suspect we'll get at least 1 or 2 more chapters sort of hinting or implying or foreshadowing what's going to happen concerning that poneglyph that Jinbei found out, because I'm pretty sure Jinbei can't read that shit, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, onto the chapter itself. The chapter is basically Zoro versus Pika, as foreshadowed in the previous terrible chapter 777. And this was a decent fight. And it's decent because everything that happened in this chapter is stuff that I already expected. Zoro having crazy armaments haki, that's been expected. And maybe not everyone's gonna expect that, but there was an SBS, which is a sort of fan magazine thing where Oda replies to fans about certain questions. Like it's like a Q&A, or a Q&A basically. And so he replies to fan mail questions concerning the series and stuff like that. And so in one of the SBSs, I think 70 something, Oda basically stated that Luffy is the King's Haki specialist in the crew, Zoro is the armaments Haki specialist in the crew, and Sanji is the observation Haki specialist in the crew. Now, for a while, what exactly Oda meant by this wasn't clear. I mean, we can make assumptions, but I think this chapter solidified different people's theories. But most people had the same theory, which is basically that Luffy's gonna have the best King's Haki, Zoro's gonna have the best armaments, and Sanji's gonna have the best observation. Of course, you're gonna have certain Luffy fanboys that want Luffy to have everything, and they're gonna say, "Oh, no, Luffy has the best of everything." But I guess this chapter sort of backed what Oda himself said, and backed the theory that okay, this is how it's gonna go down. Bam, bam, bam. These different characters are gonna be the best at these different things in the crew. And I'm still looking forward to seeing Sanji pull out some stronger observation haki feats. I mean, he does have a few, but nothing too crazy at the moment. But I'm really hyped to see what Sanji's gonna do. After all, he will be fighting Kizaru at some point, and Kizaru is probably the opponent that you need observation haki for the most in the entire series, or one of the top 2, top 3, or whatever. In any case, I digress. This was something I sort of expected, maybe not necessarily the scale of Zoro's attack, maybe I didn't expect it to do an attack this big, but given his whole time skip training and all that kind of stuff, it didn't really come much as a surprise. I obviously didn't know what was gonna happen in this chapter, but nothing in this chapter surprised me. These all met my expectations and my estimations of Zoro's strength, and we still have more to see from him. His eye. I'm pretty convinced, that he has some shit concerning his eye, and also bear in mind that he hasn't really used, his demon form, Ashura post time skip. You know what I'm saying? So Zoro definitely has some more stuff up his sleeve. I think this chapter was basically just to solidify, okay, Zoro is that Amanzaki dude of the crew, and Zoro has this ridiculous range. It's similar to when he clashed with Fujitora and he went underground and he said flying slash, and it cut through all that earth. Because the deeper you go, the harder and the more dense and strong earth goes, and you start bumping into diamonds and crazy shit like that, and he sliced through everything, and Fuji still had a slightly difficult time blocking it. You know what I'm saying? And that was just a flying slash. So Zoro is not to be fucked with. That's pretty much the lesson we learned from the chapter. But I do want to give kudos to Oda for the sort of game plan, the tactic that Zoro used. I think that was a really smart way of dealing with Pika. That's the thing about Pika, right? Very few people are beating him because he is just very annoying and really hard to deal with. Luffy is definitely not beating him because Luffy is Luffy is stronger than Pika, no doubt, but that doesn't mean it's beating him, and it's just the matchup. You need someone like Zoro who can just slice through anything like it's butter, and in a matter of seconds isolate Pika like he did in this chapter, and defeat him like he did in this chapter. And I also want to point out that I think Zoro has superior armament haki to Virgo, and I'll explain why. After Pika witnessed this man slice his body in half, his stone giant body, and he proceeded to slice this man like onions. Pika witnessed this firsthand. He witnessed this up close and personal on some GoPro shit. He witnessed this in 1080p HD. He witnessed it in 3D. You know what I'm saying? He witnessed all this shit, and he still had enough confidence in his armament haki, to go full body and say, my armament haki is going to protect me. I'm going to go in. I'm not going to run away. I'm going to go armament haki up. And I'm pretty sure, that attack, even though it's hella strong, it's still ain't beating my armament haki, because my armament haki is about that life. And that just shows how crazy Pika's armament haki is. And despite all of this, he still got waxed by Zoro's armament haki. Now, granted, Zoro is using a sword, but, but Zoro did, tear through his armor and all of that. So it's not just about Zoro using a sword. I do think Zoro's haki is stronger than Pika's, as shown in the chapter, and it's very likely that his haki is stronger than Virgo's, because I don't think Virgo's eating that attack. I don't think Virgo would have had that amount of confidence with his armaments to just to do the same thing that Pika did, which is, after witnessing this attack that can slice through cities, you're just gonna haki up and say it's all good. You know what I'm saying? But maybe I'm wrong there. But in any case, he's stronger than Pika's, and Pika's, let's assume Pika's isn't superior to Virgo's. They're still gonna be around the same level in my estimation, and it's just crazy to see Zoro's armament haki, bro. Like, I always knew it was gonna be Beast because of Oda saying that Zoro is the specialist. So at the bare minimum, it would be superior to Luffy's, but I didn't know it was gonna be this Beast. So that was really nice from the chapter. But still, overall, it's not. It's underwhelming in a sense, because we waited all this time, and we just got that. It just it's all right, but it's not beating a lot of the pre-time skip moments we had with Zoro. You know what I'm saying? This is the new world. We want bigger stuff, crazier stuff. We want more action and all that kind of stuff. But I guess Oda's taking baby steps, and in Wano Country, or Wano Kuni, or whatever, that's a samurai place. We're gonna have a lot of swordsmanship shit there, and Zoro is definitely gonna have a lot more feats and all that kind of stuff. So maybe that's the reason why Oda didn't want to just spoil everything in Dressrosa. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's sort of the reason why Pika is the way he is, and instead of being another Kako or another Dad's Bones or whatever. I think another reason why Pika is the way he is because if Zoro, is because Luffy is not beating Doflamingo solo, right? He's not. And if Luffy didn't beat Doflamingo solo and Zoro beat Doflamingo's right hand man solo, then we're gonna have Zoro fanboys saying this, that, and the other, and it's not gonna look good for Luffy. So that's another reason why Oda needed Pika to be more of just a plot device character rather than a character that's just strong and about that life. You know what I'm saying? But whatever. This video is almost 20 minutes, so I'll just kind of wrap things up here. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for chilling all the way to the end. What do you guys think about these two fights? Diamante versus Kairos and Zoro versus Pika. What do you think about Zoro's armor's haki? You know what I'm saying? And what do you look forward to in Wano Country or Wano Kuni? Feel free to leave comments down below, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And as always, thank you guys for watching.